The Shop 3 Sheep Eater. Written and read by W.P. Thrift, who can be contacted at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. And cover art created by JD, contactable at Radix_L on Twitter. Chapter 17. The Twin Biscuits. Liquid waited near the docks, smoking a cigarette and propped up against the brick wall of a shut-down, abandoned store. None of the street lamps worked on this block, and nobody ventured down this way at night. This town wasn't as dangerous as Cattailville at night, but it still had its own problems. What was this town called again? Liquid realized he couldn't even remember. He came here based on GPS coordinates, and paid little attention to the other details. A flash from a flashlight being flicked on and off from a nearby rooftop caught his eye. Another one of the March's agents were up there, signaling to Liquid that his brother had just been inserted into the zone. He was right on time. The Marches always kept a tight ship with scheduling. Not even a minute later, someone appeared next to Liquid, also propped up on the wall. Liquid's heart jumped. He had heard absolutely nothing, saw nothing. He almost went for his gun, but then he realized it was Lantis. So, Liquid thought, he's even stealthier than the last time we met. I can't even detect him anymore unless he wants me to. He was glad for that, but also a little jealous, deep down. After seeing the destruction at the Turtle Creek apartment complex, he had almost calmed his own nerves by telling himself that at least he was within a stone's throw of some of Lantis' skills. But 6 intense months of training directly under the Marches seemed to have expanded that gulf exponentially. But jealousy was not becoming of him. Besides, Liquid greatly feared for his own abilities to handle Sheep Eater. Knowing Lantis was now a cut above himself gave him hope for their success. Lantis beat a fist against his stomach several times, then coughed up a pack of cigarettes he had wrapped in plastic. He took one out, lit it up, and then re-swallowed the pack after carefully sealing it. The two of them didn't speak. Rather, they simply enjoyed a smoke together before the mission began. What was coming up wasn't the dangerous part, but it still may be the beginning of the end for the both of them. So why not enjoy one final moment of peace? Liquid glanced over at his brother's stealth suit and found another reason to be envious. It was the exact same top-of-the-line model that he had been dreaming of forever. His own stealth suit appeared roughly the same, save the cloth headband he wore rather than Lantis' leather one, but their appearances were like placing a diamond next to a cubic zirconium. The quality wasn't even remotely similar, even if only experts could tell you the difference offhand. Stomping his cigarette on the ground, Liquid asked, "All right, Solid. You ready?" Lantis flinched at that, still thinking these code names were stupid. But he didn't correct him or ask him not to say it. "I don't actually understand why we're not just renting a boat," Lantis mused. "But, yeah, sure, let's go." Liquid was a bit perplexed. He hadn't actually considered that until now. He was so used to following orders without question. Sure, he could think of reasons, like maybe these shipyard people were working for Sheep Eater in secret. Or perhaps enough shipyard people did work for Sheep Eater that it wasn't worth the risk tipping them off by trying to rent a boat from them. They could have bought a boat from somewhere using fake names, but then who knows how deep Sheep Eater's secret intelligence operatives go. In truth, the Marches were just trying to penny pinch after all the money they had spent investing into buying out Lantis' services and then training him. But either way, the result was the same. They had a mission to do, and they were to follow their orders to the letter. "I only see 2 guards," Liquid said after they had ventured to the docks, while hiding behind some crates. 2 inept guards were indeed out patrolling for hooligans that liked to steal boats at night to take them on joyrides. It was a terribly boring job, but someone had to do it. "I'll take out the one on the right. You take out the one on the left," Liquid said, drawing out a knife. Lantis was a bit squeamish at the thought of that. "Well, okay, why not just knock them out?" "Forget it. If they work for Sheep-Eater, we don't want them informing their boss of a boat being stolen. Knowing when the boats went missing would give him a timeline to use, to give him a general idea of when we might arrive," Liquid explained. "So we'll just cut their throats, load them onto the boat, mop up the blood, then dump their bodies out in the ocean when we're a ways out." "Then why don't we tie them up? Give ourselves a head start at least," Lanta suggested, still going for a non-lethal option. "It wouldn't be enough of a head start," Liquid insisted. "Somebody would find them." "Tape their mouths and stick them behind the dumpsters," Lanta said. "It'll be at least 3 days before they're found. We'll be on the island by then, right?"
How do you know it'll be 3 days?"
Liquid asked. Lantis pointed to the trash pickups Saturday only sign on the giant green dumpster across the street from the docks. That would be 3 days from now. They pick up the dumpsters, see the guys behind it, free 'em, and there'll be no time left for them to inform Sheep-Eater that we're on our way, Lantis concluded.
Forget it. It's too risky. They could die anyway if the trash men don't notice them,"
Liquid pointed out.
"And dehydration is a really terrible way to go."
"But this gives them a chance," Lantis hissed, staying aware of how much noise he was making, while also trying to emphasize his point.
"We're not gonna risk it,"
Liquid said flatly. "I'm not gonna kill anyone," Lantis blurted out, loudly enough that both guards did stop and turn their way. They both ducked behind the crates to stay hidden, and the guards eventually shrugged and turned back around, walking down the wooden docks away from them. Liquid sighed.
"Fine, we'll do it your way."
They both came out from their hiding spot, rushed over to the dock, and, without a sound, rushed up behind the 2 guards. Both of them grabbed a guard from behind and put him into a sleeper hold. 30 seconds later, both guards were out cold, and Liquid pulled a spool of nylon rope out from his belt, handed a length of it to Lantis, and they both tied up their own guard, complete with taping over their mouths, before dragging them across the street and sticking them behind the rancid-smelling dumpster. Returning to the dock, they hopped on board a boat pre-selected by the Marches for them to take. It was a small yacht, but it was the fastest boat in the harbor. Liquid knew how to pilot these things, so he went straight to the controls, used the copy of the key the Marches had mailed to him to crank it up, and they were off. Apparently, whomever owned this yacht had been planning to take it out to sea for a vacation very soon, as the refrigerator down in the living quarters under the deck was fully stocked. Liquid helped himself, taking out a large plastic container full of turkey sandwiches and 2 bottled waters. He had piloted the ship until dawn, with Lantis mostly standing on the front, leaning over the railing and just staring out at the ocean. Exhaustion was setting in for Liquid by morning. He needed to do something else besides drive the boat to fight off his tiredness. He knew that every time he nodded off, he'd snap back awake even more drained of energy than before, and Sheep-Eater would grow just a little more powerful from having consumed his dreams. So he put the boat on autopilot and went to rummaging through stuff below deck. Returning above deck, he found that since he had been gone, Lantis had stripped down to his underwear and was now laying stretched out on a beach towel, just soaking up rays from the morning sun.
"Put your suit back on,"
Liquid grumbled. "Make me," Lantis retorted. "Man, this sure is nice, isn't it? I should have gone on a boat ride a long time ago." Liquid sat down next to Lantis and offered him a turkey sandwich and a bottled water. Lantis accepted and continued to just lie there as he gnawed on the sandwich. They sat/lied there most of the day, besides the bit where Liquid had to get up, kill the speed, and navigate manually through the Panama Canal. Beyond that, it was just chilling and chatting about anything that came to mind. Liquid had so many questions about the March's training, as he had never gotten to personally train under them for very long. Most of his training had come from his youth, spent under the tyranny of a warlord in South Africa.
You do have another brother, too, you know,
Liquid told him.
codename Solidus. He grew up in Africa, too. Kenya, to be more precise. You are the only one of us lucky enough to grow up in America.
Lucky isn't exactly the word Lantis would use to describe his upbringing, but it was what it was. He tried to tell him more about Solidus, but Lantis didn't seem too interested, so he stuck to talking more about himself. First, working in the diamond mines when he was 5, all the way up to being assigned an assault rifle to guard the diamond mines when he turned 8. A lifetime of murder and nightmares soon followed. I was raised by wolves, Lantis replied offhandedly. But then, hey, is it getting chilly out? Lantis lost his train of thought as he sat up. The sun was disappearing over the horizon now, and they were out of sandwiches. Liquid was nearly out of cigarettes, too, as Lantis kept bumming them off him all day because he didn't like to always be throwing up his own pack. Liquid tried to tell him he could just keep them out at this point, but Lantis refused, still leery that the old man would come from out of nowhere to try and take them from him again.
We're traveling southwest at very high speeds. We've probably passed the equator by now, so temperatures are just going to keep dropping the further south we get. We'll be there long before it's freezing, of course. Rayleigh is as far from Antarctica as it is from South America, and I guess roughly Australia, right at the point in the ocean furthest from any landmass.
Liquid explained.
Well, besides the mysterious island smack dab in the middle, that should have never existed.
Lantis reluctantly put his stealth suit back on. The sun was about to set anyway, so he wouldn't be able to get any better tan than this today. They were both sitting up out on the deck now, just watching the endless blue ocean all around them, as it slowly faded into a brilliant orange as the sun began to set. They knew that they were going forward, but if they couldn't feel it, then they wouldn't know it. Visually, their surroundings seemed unchanging. The night lamp switched on around the control booth, giving them light as the sun finished setting and the ocean's orange faded to black. Neither of them would be sleeping tonight, or tomorrow night. They couldn't. The monster that ate sleep would never allow them to rest again for so long as they lived, or for so long as he lived. But after tomorrow night, they would be arriving at Rayleigh. That's where the real mission starts. After days of exhaustion, they would have to outmaneuver guards that Liquid just knew the monster would have allowed to sleep, keeping his own men fresh while everyone else in the world suffered and grew increasingly disoriented. Lantis and Liquid were both below deck playing cards on a plastic table, eating from a tub of ham sandwiches. They were both nodding off by this point, and had both fallen victim to the visions of Sheep-Eater's taunting laughter. During those moments, they could feel him getting fatter by the second, and closer to victory with every passing moment. They had snapped back awake, dazed and confused, not certain if reality was quite as real as it had always been anymore, or if somehow it was all falling apart as Sheep-Eater grew more powerful, and they ventured closer and closer to both Rayleigh and madness. You know, sometimes I wonder, Lantis said, throwing down a pair of 5s. Who's really more annoyed here? The insomniac who only gets 2 hours of sleep every night, or the sleep-eating monster who has to starve on so few hours consumed? Liquid nodded. He was so exhausted that those words struck him as profound, rather than the sleep-deprived ramblings they actually were. Insert explosion sound effects here. The table flipped over as the yacht lurched. An explosion had just erupted very nearby.
The fuck was that?
Liquid yelled. I know! I was winning! Lantis said, only paying attention to the flipped-over table and the cards now scattered everywhere. Liquid suddenly realized how badly he had lost track of time. They should be arriving at Rayleigh Island any minute now, which means that explosion may have been caused by...
Oh, fuck!
Liquid shouted.
Sheep-Eater knows we're coming! He must be firing on us!
Oh, with what? Lantis asked.
Does it really matter?
Yeah, maybe? Lantis shrugged. They both ran out above deck, and there they saw it. Rayleigh Island. Still far enough away that it appeared a light blue color. That was only a color distortion caused by the distance. But still, it was close enough to be visible. Land ho, and all that jazz. Cannons lined the beachfront, and they were all firing on the yacht. They were far enough that the cannonballs were about to strike down before the distant echoing of cannon fire could even be heard. The cannonballs themselves were massive, but at least they didn't explode as Liquid had first thought. They just crashed down really, really hard into the water.
Grab hold of something! I'm gonna try and dodge them! We'll be safe if we can just get to land!
Liquid yelled while running up to the controls to switch it off of autopilot. He was certain now. The guards must have been working from Sheep-Eater, gotten free, and somehow contacted their boss. So he had prepared for them, ready to fire on them as they approached. In reality, Jogamesh had finally worked up the courage to fish the remote control out of one of Sheep-Eater's porta-potties, and he just happened to be playing with the cannons out of boredom. So, once again, everyone here seems to suck at assuming things correctly. But when reality is this loony, can you really blame them? Another round of massive cannonballs cracked down all around the yacht. But with Liquid at the controls, he was able to veer around them, assuming they were being aimed at. He was ready to drive the boat in one direction before veering off course as soon as he saw the flashes of the cannons firing off. He'd be able to stay ahead of the cannoneers that way, unless they brilliantly deduced their enemy's movements. Of course, as his foe was just firing randomly and didn't even see the yacht, it was indeed the enemy who had the advantage, as Liquid couldn't possibly predict his pattern of attack. 20 remote-controlled giant cannons across the beachfront, all firing in his direction with an impact radius bigger than the yacht itself. He'd just have to get lucky to dodge them all at this point.
We've got this!
Liquid yelled confidently.
Just hold on. We are almost there!
Insert bigger explosion sound effect here. A cannonball smashed directly into the yacht, bursting it apart and sending everything, including its passengers, flying. As fast as it had been going, it wasn't going to sink until it, in all its many pieces, sailed wildly through the air. Liquid squeezed his eyes shut and curled into a ball. He felt the air rushing around him, and then pieces of the yacht smashing into him from all around. Even though it was only small pieces, it was enough to cause lasting bruises, lacerations, and potentially broken bones. He felt his back hit the water and then bounce. The second time it hit, it was head first. Except this time he broke through the ocean's surface tension and shot deep into the ocean before his momentum finally broke and he came to a stop. Liquid opened his eyes to try and orient himself. It was daylight out, so he had to look for even a glimmer of brightness. He thought he recognized the right way to go, and he started to swim. His breath wouldn't hold out forever, especially because the impact had knocked the wind from him. He didn't see Lantis anywhere, and he didn't expect to. He couldn't even say for certain that Lantis hadn't been hit dead on. The cannonball struck the yacht so suddenly he didn't get a good visualization of where his brother was versus where the point of impact was. Liquid prayed he was swimming in the right direction, any other direction but straight up, and he'd never be able to reorient himself and make it to the surface in time to avoid drowning. And then something grabbed his foot. Looking down, he saw a skelly, green fishman. He was secretly relieved that that's all it was. There were far, far worse monsters in the ocean than fishmen. But this particular breed of fishmen, the deep ones, were not known to him. But he figured it would die like all the rest. He grabbed a knife and went to stab it in the neck, but then a second fishman swam up rapidly from out of nowhere to grab his wrist. This fishman squeezed and shook his arm until the knife was shaken free from his hand. The fishmen both grinned, taunting him, their gills bobbing slowly back and forth, reminding him that they could breathe just fine while he suffocated, and he would soon start sucking in water, whether he wanted to or not. Liquid wrestled against them, but it was futile. He didn't have nearly the strength to fend off two of these monsters in their own home turf. He felt the light slowly leaving his eyes, and then he felt the first damning gulp of water burning as it entered his lungs. That concludes Chapter 17 of Sheep Eater. Tune in every Tuesday for new chapters, and please subscribe to be notified the moment they're released. If you would like to reach me, you can do so at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. That's LANTISARMSTRONG. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's chapter, The Deep Ones.